Hello, this is Kim Wade from Inner Gaze Yoga. Today we're going to work on Janu Sirsasana, that is head to knee pose. And this today will be focusing on those folks who have sciatica, a pinched sciatic nerve, or a lower back pain, or feeling like you need a twist and a forward fold. This is a really great pose, especially when you're getting a little bit of a stiff, tight, or like I said, sciatic burning here in the lower back, the sciatica running down through the buttocks and down into the leg. Oftentimes also the piriformis muscle, the muscle running across the lower back, can get really tight. So this is a really great pose to open up that lower back. So we'll make a couple of assumptions here. Number one, we're going to assume that it's hard to sit up straight. So if you're finding that with your legs out straight, it's hard for your torso or your spine to sit up nice and straight, then you will sit on a block or a pillow, right? So we'll come up on that. Now what that does is that takes my pelvis, right, and it puts my pelvis in the proper position. Rather than being tucked under like this, rather than having this big back bend, it's in that neutral zone. And it just takes the work out of it. You know, it's one of those things that makes it really easy. You don't have to think about it. It happens naturally when you're elevated. So what I am is I'm sitting right on the edge of my sits bones, those bones in your bottom. I'm sitting right on the edge of that. And then I'm going to pull my front ribs back, and I'm going to sit up nice and tall. Nice and tall, okay? So the second thing we're going to assume is that we have tight hips. And if you have tight hips, and when you bring your left heel into the groin, your knee doesn't go down any more than this, you'll have another pillow or another block, and you'll allow that block to hold that leg up for you. And again, it's taking the work out of the postures. These are called props, propping you up, propping you, giving you support as you do the work in the pose, right? So some of us can go down a little bit deeper, and some of us can come all the way down. The idea here is that you want the knee to be lower than the hip, so that the hip is staying open rather than clenched and tight. Okay, so those would be two variations. Now, the right leg is going to come straight out of my hip. So oftentimes we take this leg over. I don't know if you can see that, but in this posture we want it straight out. Well, actually most postures straight out, so that we're not tweaking out that hip joint. So I'm going to fire up this leg. The thigh is nice and strong, nice and firm. That foot goes straight out and it fires up. And then the left heel comes all the way into the groin. Again, either propped up on your supports or being on the mat. Now the first thing we can do is sit up nice and tall by pulling the ribs up and out of the waist, right? Picking up the front ribs, picking up the back ribs, dragging the shoulders down, and pulling the head back in space, right? So the back of the head is directly over the lower back. Belly is nice and strong. If this is challenging for you to stay here, keeping this thigh firm, then that will be the work. That'll be your posture staying for 8 to 10, 12 breaths, okay? If you feel like you want to go a little bit deeper, you can take that left hand on the outside of the right leg, and I have a wall here. I'm going to use it, put my hand on the wall, or you could put it on the floor, and start to twist your body, keeping the spine as perpendicular to the floor so that you're actually rotating around the spine rather than rotating sort of in a diagonal sort of shape. So as perpendicular as I can make it. Now I'm going to use my left hand almost like I'm pulling my leg out. So I'm almost like I'm gently pulling it out, able to wring out my spine a little bit more using this wall. And that feels so good on this lower back. Again, staying for whatever, beginner 5 to 8 breaths, intermediate 8 to 10, 12 to 15, whatever feels good for you. Breathing in, taking in clean air. Exhale, and then wring out the body a little bit more. So, if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, I'll switch legs so you can see this. The idea, as always, is to do it from the top of the thigh, right? That hip crease is what we call it. Lower back pain is second most common reason people miss work. Lower back pain is very prevalent in our country, and most of the time it's because we're using that lower back to do our forward folding, to pick up our kids, pick up the laundry, pick up whatever we're picking up. And the idea is if we could keep our spine strong and standing up nice and tall using the hip crease to forward fold, then that's going to keep more integrity in that spine, right? So the top of the thigh bone is pulling to the floor. I'm pulling up and out of that hip, and then I can start to exhale and forward fold. So again, not this, but this. And sometimes maybe you'll only move an inch. Some of us can go a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. You can use a yoga strap if you have it, a necktie, a belt, a lasso if you have one of those laying around. Anything you can to take that foot elevated into a flex position, nice and firm leg, hook it on there, and take some time. Now, as always, yoga is the body and the mind connection. So the whole focus of these yoga poses is so that we can come into this yoga mind. And you do that by breathing. So it's called loving kindness, right? When you have this loving kindness, you're starting to see where the hamstrings are resisting, where the hamstrings are holding on tight. And you send your breath, your loving kindness, to that area with sort of a compassionate feeling of empathy. You know, this is really tight for my legs. Breathe it in, exhale, surrender. Breathe it in, exhale, surrender. And that is the way the body is going to unload some of this resistance and tightness. It's a coaxing of the body. In every yoga pose we do, you're coaxing with the breath. Inhale, fill it up with good, clean, nourishing air. Exhale, go a little bit deeper. So I hope that helps. The other thing is if the sciatica is being more inflamed or more fired up by doing these forward folds, then these are not for you, and you can come into a different pose of maybe just sitting up nice and straight and just doing a little bit of a twist. We'll do some more poses for sciatica later, but I hope this one is of benefit. Namaste.